It's 5:30. I call this meeting of the Northwest Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551. The board will convene in closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Chapter 551, including sections 551.071, consultation with board attorney, and 551.072 real estate matters, and 551.074 personnel matters, and 551.076 security devices or security audits. And now we will move to closed session. We're going to start with a public meeting to discuss the 2019-20 budget and proposed tax rate. There's John. There's John. Dr. Grasham.
All right. The Board of Trustees has reviewed the budget in a series of workshops and updates beginning in December through June, and has finalized the personnel and compensation plan at the June 10th regular meeting, and then in the workshop on the 17th reviewed it. Tonight we're beginning the budget adoption phase as outlined on the budget calendar. The Board of Trustees is scheduled to adopt the budget later tonight. The tax rate will be adopted on August the 26th after the July 25th certification of the tax roll by the appraisal districts in Denton, Tarrant, and Wise County. The tax rate that's proposed at this point is 97 cents for maintenance and operations, which is down from the current year's $1.04. Interest and sinking tax rate unchanged at 45 cents for a total tax rate of $1.42. The notice was published in the Denton Record Chronicle, and this is I'll be happy to answer any questions, but this is a public hearing open to the public.
Anyone have any questions? Okay, thank you. And I'll close the public meeting, and we will reconvene to our regular meeting. Dr. Warren.
Okay. If everybody please rise. It's good to see everyone. Thank you for coming to our June board meeting in the summer. If you feel comfortable doing so, please pray with me. Our dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day, and Lord, we thank you for allowing us to be part of our school district and be a part of our children's lives. We thank you for our board members tonight. Just bring them the guidance that they need and long for those great decisions that they make for your children, Lord. We ask that you bless this meeting, that you see us all safely home, and above all things, Lord, we ask that you give your love, your guidance, your wisdom, and your protection to our children. It's in your name we pray. Amen. All right, let's see. Mr. Carter, why don't you lead us in our pledges today? Loud and proud, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you, Mr. Carter. And one clarification for Mr. McClure last week, you don't get a present for doing that. Sorry.
Okay, our next item is recognitions. Dr. Warren.
Board, we have some phenomenal recognitions tonight. So, Emily, are you ready?
I am ready. All right, if you and Mrs. Kopp can join me at the front, please. We're going to start off recognizing our GEM Award, which, as you remember, is our Going the Extra Mile Award that's presented to a central office member for excellent customer service. So this evening we are recognizing Cheryl Kavinsky, our benefits specialist. If you want to come up, and joining her is her supervisor, Kitty Paler, and Barb Walker with EECU. They are a great sponsor of this GEM Award. So Cheryl was nominated by her peers for her outstanding customer service, and she has been with Northwest ISD for 23 years now. So congratulations, Cheryl. Okay, next we are actually going to ask all of our board members to join us at the front because we have some Board of Trustee awards from some folks that were at our Destination Global Finals. So we have teams from Thompson Elementary School and Medlin Middle School that competed in the Destination Imagination Global Finals, and that is one of the largest problem-solving competitions for students in the world. The Global Finals tournament hosted more than 1,200 teams from 17 countries and 38 states. So in late May, they went to compete, and the Thompson team, which was called Too Legit to Quit, placed 24th out of 55 teams in the Medical Mystery Challenge category. Medlin Middle School's team, called Wombats in Spanish team, they finished 35th out of more than 60 teams in the Service Learning Challenge. So we're going to recognize both groups. So we'll start with Thompson's team members. We have Frankie Garza, Jackson Machika, and if you can just come up when your name is called, Jaden Medlin, Elijah Smith, Isley Stanley, David Strong, and Brianna Zaleski. And they are managed by Marcy Conrad and Catherine Medlin. And if you guys want to join us too, Marcy, and yes, please. Come on, please. And this team would also like to thank Mr. Tim McClure for giving them some pins and all of his support for their team. All right, and next we have our Medlin team members. So when your name is called, please join us at the front as well. And I apologize if I mispronounce anyone's name. Gwen Baxter, Regan Ellis, Ryder Fine, Andrew Golden, Ian Hill, and Kurt Ippolito. And they are coached by Lori Baxter. Awesome. Congratulations. All right, and if everyone can stay, we still have two more. So we would like to invite Mr. Scott Blattner to the front. Scott has served on our Northwest ISD Education Foundation Board for the past 12 years, and he is now stepping off from his position as board of directors on our foundation board. So just a little bit about Scott. His children graduated and attended schools in Northwest ISD. He's a very valued member of our community as a business partner and a NEF board member, and we are just so appreciative of all you have done, Scott. I'm going to jump in. And for our final recognition, would you like the mic, Dr. Warren? Okay.
Come on up. Dr. Ruth, you come up to the well, please. I would do that. Thank you. So we are celebrating Josh Wright tonight. Josh, longtime student of Northwest ISD schools, graduate of Northwest High School, and then came back to us as a leader of the district, as a board member, served as president of the board. He was actually the past board president when I came. Josh and Mark actually took me right around the first time I really moved around the district. Mark and Josh were the ones being right around. I really wish Josh had driven that day. Mark drove, I think we had 27 catches at that time, and Mark made it about 15 minutes. But, Josh is a shining example of what we want our children to excel in. And it probably don't know this, but Josh is now he works in our state cabinet. He works for one of our state representatives, a newly elected state representative. But looking at his career, looking at what he's done in Northwest ISD and now what he's done now that he's out of there, this is an example set for our students in the way they excel. And we're very proud of it. And I was very proud of it for you. And very proud to hopefully we'll win you now in the state legislature. But we're just very proud of what you did. You're welcome. Yes, please.
Yeah, it's been an honor the last 10 years serving here in Northwest ISD. It's been one of the greatest honors of my lifetime. There's so many people, everybody's standing up here right now, my fellow board members. Mark took me underneath his wing. Dr. Karen Harris is here tonight, a previous superintendent. I've just been very blessed. It's been such a great group of folks. Everybody that's in this room, everybody that supported me, all the work that y'all do every day, it is evident that the support, with Dr. Warren, and all the leadership that we have, that students come first. That is the first thing that that's going to be made. You can rest assured that all these folks are thinking about your kids first. To be a part of that, especially some of what I grew up, has been an honor. I'm very thankful to my mom and my little sister who are here tonight. They've been very supportive of me, and thank you all. Northwest will always be in my heart, and it's always been a special place to me. And it was an honor to be able to serve this community. And appreciate the opportunity.
Mom, sister, go on. Okay. We'll send you pictures.
Everyone, let's swing. 1, 2, 3.
That is all for our recognitions. Dr. Warren.
Folks, you are very much invited to stay for the rest of the meeting. If you want to excuse yourself, we understand that. Karen, you can always stay.
Okay, our next item is public participation, and there are none. Okay. So we'll move on to the consent agenda.
Madam President,
Mr. Sluter.
I move to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second. Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Sluter, a second by Dr. Simpson. All those in favor? Okay, carries 6-0.
Thank you, Board.
And we don't have any items removed from the consent agenda, so we'll move on to discussion action items. The first one is TASB Board Policy Update 112. Dr. Warren?
Board, the information of this extensive update from TASB begins on page 132 in your packet. The actual presentation that Christy made last week, and she's got that available for any of your questions on page 558 in your packet. Again, this actually this is a very extensive update from the 85th legislative session, the 2017 session that they're just now rolling out for us. And so from Christy's presentation, she would be happy to entertain any of your questions. After those are answered, I would recommend approval.
I do have one question. Well, I may have a couple. But first of all, with regard to CH and CV, the change from the 50,000 to the 100,000, I need a little more information about that, because in some ways that 50,000 protects our employees as they make decisions, and it really kind of holds us all accountable. And 100,000 seems like a big difference between 50 and 100. So could you explain the rationale for that? And is that something the state is recommending?
Right. So TASB doesn't have, like, their recommendation on the changes to CH Local didn't include a change to that amount. And school districts around the state have different amounts. I've seen as low as 25,000. I've seen as high as 150,000. So that's really a local decision that districts make as far as where they set that threshold. For the last few years, Northwest has had it set at 50,000 as a threshold to bring back for approval contracts above that amount. There are a couple of reasons that increase was requested. One is just that over time, $50,000 doesn't buy as much as it used to. And so considering inflation and other increased costs, that's part of it. Another part of the reason is that as the district has grown and as the number of purchases within that threshold have grown, we haven't grown our business office staff to the same degree. And so by not bringing contracts between that $50,000 and $100,000 threshold, that does take a little bit of the administrative work off of business office staff. And so I think those were the main reasons for that. I did just some quick research at neighboring districts to see what others had. For the most part, 50,000 is probably about the average. I did find that Richardson was at 100,000 and Denton was at 150,000. Was there anything, Brian or Mark, that you all wanted to add about the reason for that request?
Yeah, the amounts are still going to be within budgeted purchases, so they're not going to be items that are not part of the annual operating budget. So it's not going to be like
And then on the CV, that's for construction purchases, there really aren't many that even fall under $100,000, but that request was made just to be consistent, so that both policies would reflect the same dollar amount and we wouldn't have a $50,000 in one and a $100,000 in another, just for consistency's sake.
On the CH local, 50,000, CH legal still requires us to get out 50,000, 50 to 100. We'll be able to do that.
But we could choose to leave it at 50.
You could, yes.
And then I had another question about GKA, or I guess it's GF. No, it's GKA. And this, Dr. Warren was explaining to me that the state had added a lot of parameters to this, and that some of those were conflicting and confusing for us. But I just felt like GKA needed a broad parameters so that we knew why an administrator might need to refuse entry to a campus or eject someone. It's so broad now. I don't know if I were an administrator how I would make that justification. Is there a place in between what the state has recommended, and is there a place to land in the middle?
Right. So in 2017, the law on ejecting guests from campuses and school activities changed. And before that, the law allowed administrators to eject any, it was, quote, any undesired person from campus events or campus activities or school activities. And that really gave broad discretion for administrators to notice, well, this person seems like they're maybe under the influence of something. We're not sure, and we don't want them near our students. Or the freedom to send someone out the first time they yell at a staff member. When the law changed in 2017, it put in a bunch of roadblocks so that now, under the law, administrators are required first to ask someone, an adult or a guest who's behaving badly. They have to say, look, what you're doing is inappropriate, please stop. And then if they don't stop, then they can eject them. And then while they're ejecting them, they have to give them notice of their rights to appeal. And essentially, it sounds good on paper, but the execution of it is very burdensome on staff. We have staff members who keep business cards in their pockets whenever they're on game duty, so that if they have to kick someone out, here's where you can find our grievance policy. And frankly, the way the law was written in 2017, it takes away a lot of ability to keep public events safe. I would say that most adults who show up to school events and yell at staff members or are obviously intoxicated don't necessarily need a warning to know that what they're doing is inappropriate. And so what we've proposed doing under the DOI plan is removing those impediments and essentially going back to where campus administrators have the discretion to remove people who may be a safety threat or may be causing a disruption.
Right. I think you had said before undesirable behavior, but that language is not in, is that in the policy now?
What it used to say was undesired person. It didn't even qualify on their behavior. But what this does is we remove all those procedural requirements where we don't have to warn a full-grown adult to stop misbehaving at our events.
It just seems like if we had a little clarity there, like this is undesirable behavior, inappropriate behavior, rather than just we can, I know we wouldn't, but it seems like it's too broad.
Well, and we can't put everything in policy.
Right.
You know, we just put the general dynamics in policy, and then, you know, the crew that we have who assure that our activities are safe. And the blessing about being us, we have to do this so few times in our district. But I like the way that this is the ability to go back to where we were, so that again, this is just another provision to make us safer when we make these decisions. And our staff do a really good job. I mean, we're not going to take advantage of this. And again, I like the wording of this now. I think it does make us safer.
Any other questions?
I do have one more question. Is there anything in current law that the governor has just signed in that contradicts with any of the policy that's currently given here in this?
Oh, probably so. And that's why TASB's working on another update that we'll receive in a couple of months and that I'll bring back to you probably in December, January-ish, with the new legislative update. But I'm sure there are things that are brand new here that will be changed in just a few months.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas.
Anything else? Any questions?
Madam President,
Mr. Sluter?
I move to approve TASB Policy Update 112 as recommended by the administration and Texas Association of School Boards.
Second. Have a motion by Mr. Sluter and a second by Dr. Roush. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. 5-1. Next discussion action item is local district policy update 2019.01 regarding 9-week grading periods. Dr. Warren?
Board, on page 585, again, the information on the two policies that we need to adjust because of our move from 6-week to 9-week grading periods. Those were EIA local, and that had to do with the grading period and the issuance of report cards, and then the EIC local talks about class rank and honor graduates on that, so we're going to recommend those approvals. One question that came up, we are going to track this. This is new to a lot of us. I never taught or was a principal on or been a superintendent on a 9-week grading period, so we will be keeping data on. I think we told you last board meeting. A lot of this is us listening to our classroom teachers, and our teachers had a lot of suggestions of needing more time there at the beginning of the school year, especially with the relationships that need to be built there right at the beginning of the school year. And again, the way our calendar always worked out, instead of a 6-week grading period, we actually had a 5-week grading period. So we expected teachers to form the relationships, start the teaching, get their grades in, all within that 5-week period. And it was just a little hectic on them. So we hope that one of the results of this change will be, forming more solid relationships with students at the beginning of the school year. And then academically, we'll track that as we go through on how the teachers and the students feel about the 9 weeks. So, Board, I would recommend approval of these two changes, EIA and EIC. And again, Christy is here for any questions, and Rob is here for any questions about that.
And as we study this, we could look at elementary and secondary separately, because we might find that the 9-week grading period was beneficial for one group but not the other. Okay.
That would be something we could look at. Now, I don't know of any districts who actually have.
Frisco ISD actually has 9 weeks for secondary.
Well, then we definitely don't want to do it if it's Frisco.
Dr. Ferris did some of his research uncovered that, as well as
Good.
achieving districts that are doing 9 weeks and transition that way. So, it is definitely still out there on different ways to try to do it and evaluate what's best for our kids. Teachers that we work with and what is really believe that reteaching and the time we get with our grading policy, which our grading policy is very beneficial to students, probably more so than some, about reteaching and making sure the kids have an opportunity to learn what and master what it is that we do. Take the 9 weeks and do more time.
So how will we determine whether this is successful or not?
I think that, especially this first week, we're going to get two different things. We need to get some perception data coming from parents, students, and teachers about the feedback that we get. And I think we also, we'll have to look at the kids' grades all the way up to semester exams and going forward. I know that one of the big questions right off the bat that our executive director team working with their staff, including Coach Johnson and Kevin Lane, was eligibility requirements. What will that change? So retraining the teachers on that. Our parents will still get 3-week progress reports as they do right now. So every 3 weeks that we get something from the district on what their grades are. It's only that formal stopgap time that it is right now. And so the requirements for the number of grades and things of that nature we feel like is a positive. We will have ample opportunity both from DEIC as well as faculty advisory council. Will probably be 2 big places that we gather feedback.
Thanks, sir.
Madam President,
Dr. Roush?
I motion to approve the TASB policy update 112 as recommended. Whoops, wrong one. I motion to approve local district policy update 201901 to amend board policies EIA local and EIC local as presented.
Second.
Was that Ms. Hatfield? Or was that you, Dr. Simpson? Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, I have a motion by Dr. Roush, a second by Dr. Simpson. All those in favor? Carries 6-0.
Thank you, Board.
Okay, our next item is local district policy update 2019.02 regarding District of Innovation policies. Dr. Warren?
Board, the policies for DOI, our DOI status begin on page 590 in your packet. I want to thank Dr. Thornell again for his work and the committee's work in bringing these to us. The District of Innovation Committee worked very hard on this, and we really think we pulled some things out that, if we need to apply them, will help us in the future. So you have the 10 policies there listed for you, from teacher certification to probationary contracts to mentor teachers. So again, I like the work that has been done. I appreciate Christy's work with the committees for the policy updates, and I would recommend approval, and this will put us in compliance with the DOI status that we've already gained.
I'll make a motion to approve local district policy update 2019.02 to amend the local board policies as presented. Is that right? Is there a proper? As presented.
Okay, I have a motion by Mrs. Hatfield and a second by Mr. Sproles. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I do have one thing. We talk about innovation, and we look at some of these things, and I'm sure they're innovative and will help save some resources or make them more efficient. But just encourage administration to kind of look for ideas outside the box to make it even more innovative and successful for our students.
Well, Rob did a really good job. When he started the committee work, he made a really, really good statement right at the beginning that we are probably one of the most innovative districts in the state, and we do not ask permission to do so from TEA. I appreciate what the legislature did for DOI, and again, I think if we are going to use any of these, they will help us, especially in that area of career and tech, that we could get some folks in here with some very unique abilities. But I think we have the culture that we really do. Again, nothing to do with TEA, but we really try to push the envelope and see what we can reach kids.
Thanks, sir.
Good comment. Birthday boy.
All right, anything else? All right, I have a motion by Ms. Hatfield, a second by Mr. Sproles. All those in favor? Carries 6-0.
Thank you, Board.
Okay, next is adopt the budget for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2020. Dr. Warren?
Mr. Grashwich?
Well, enclosed is a budget summary at the fund and function level. I don't see it. Okay, thank you. I was looking for something that isn't there. Enclosed is a budget summary at the fund and function level. The Board of Trustees has been asked to approve the budgets for the general fund, the debt service fund, and the food service fund. The other special revenue funds, i.e. grants and capital projects budgets, are being provided for informational purposes. The information, essentially, we've been doing this all throughout, starting in January, as discussed earlier at the public hearing. The proposed tax rate would be brought to the board and adopted in August the 26th. Essentially, the general fund is budgeted at $242 million and is used to account for the resources, financing, and fundamental operations of the district. This is a budgeted fund, and fund balances may be used to address, as may be appropriate by the Board of Trustees to implement its responsibilities. The grants or special revenue funds are budgeted at $13.6 million to account for federally financed or expenditures legally restricted by the grantor. The food service fund is the major fund within this at $9.2 million. Debt service funds are budgeted at $78.6 million and account for the payment of principal and interest on the debt of the district. And then the capital projects are budgeted at $212 million. Essentially, these are the funds that are used for the construction. Currently, we have $199 million in authorized but unissued bonds. We've made two issuances of $100 million each off the 2017 authorization election. I think it's kind of interesting. We spend, over the last 3 years, $1.4 million per week in construction. That just is kind of an interesting indicator to me. We always look at the student side, but the building side is just as dramatic as the student increase over the time. All the schedules are attached, including the calendar. Be happy to answer any questions. the administration recommends approval.
Board, let me go to a couple of comments. And we've talked about this all through the spring. Your vote tonight is usually the end of your work on the budget on normal years. This is not a normal year. You're going to be making multiple revisions to this budget. In my 20 years being a superintendent, I've never really brought a budget to a board that I didn't know really what the numbers were going to be, but we still don't. I mean, it might be a year before TEA truly gives us the guidance that we need to understand what HB3, and John said it very well the last meeting that we had. This has not happened since 1985. And so none of us have gone through this. The budget that the expenditure side that we're approving tonight, I think is going to take us a long way of meeting the needs of our children, the needs of our programs and our staff. What you did for our staff last board meeting with the compensation package you put together, I think was phenomenal for them. 4% for those 5 years, 6 years and above, the 3%, the 2%, greatly appreciated by your staff. But again, adopting even a little bit of a deficit budget, that's what makes me uncomfortable this year, because it's such a unique year, because we just don't know what that final tally will be. And so please be patient with us, and I'm going to do my best to be patient with TEA. That does not always work in my favor, but I am going to do my best. The tax rate reduction is going to be a good thing for our electorate, for our taxpayers. You know, we're going to drop that total bill by 7 cents, or not the bill, but the tax rate by 7 cents. So we hope that the way the legislature put this together, that local property owners will realize some savings, will realize some drops in their bills if the legislature did it correctly. If they tried all session to marry tax rate reduction and increase the revenue for school districts. Most of our increases hopefully will come through as the reduction of recapture for us. We were scheduled to pay between 25 to 27 million over old law. We were told all session that was going to be zeroed out. First couple of templates John got back from the state, it went as high as $7 million again. Now it's dropped back down to 3.5. We really just don't know yet. And so your vote on this will be greatly appreciated. But again, just understand the amendments that we will make, that Brian will lead now to making this thing whole, will be coming. And again, we will take great pains to explain, why we're doing where we are, because I think you need to know that you're going to be asked several questions in the community about what HB3 did for us or did to us. So we're going to do our best to keep you informed every board meeting to show you what we know now as it relates to HB3. So Mrs. Kopp, I would recommend approval.
I do have several questions.
Yes, ma'am.
The first one is, I really thought that we would be receiving more from the state. And on page 613, under the general fund revenues, it shows a big drop. Can you give us some insight as to why that dropped close to 11 million?
Yeah, essentially, on the state revenue side, what's happening is the switch to current values. In the past, you have let me start back one step. That is, funding is built around what's called Tier 1. And Tier 1 is you get so much money for your special ed students, so much money for your regular students, so much money for your comp ed students, all your different types of students. You get transportation funding. So all these different categories of funding is what's called Tier 1. They're driven by the numbers and types of children you have, as well as the basic allotment, or what used to be the adjusted basic allotment, but they got rid of the cost of education index, and so now it's just the basic allotment. So that's your gross amount of money you get. They subtract from that something called the local fund assignment, and essentially that is a calculation based on your property wealth. And so you get a gross amount of funding based on your numbers and types of kids, and then they subtract an amount based essentially on your property wealth. In prior years, well, the current year and prior years, that amount was based on the previous year's property value. It is now based on the projected property year's value. So the 1920 would have been based on 1819. Now this takeaway is based on 1920. So current values, well, our current values are projected to go up over $2.5 billion. So suddenly the amount of money that's being held back from your Tier 1 funding is increased dramatically because your property values are going up by, we're projecting at this point, 15%. And so that is creating a huge takeaway on the state program revenues that are sent to us from the state of Texas. So that is why the state program revenue number is decreasing despite the increase in the basic allotment of about, well, net several hundreds of dollars.
And that's what affects the foundation school program.
Yes, and this is all what's called the foundation school program calculation. And these are based on version 3, there were some questions about version 2, but this is based on version 3, Omar Garcia's worksheets, and they'll be tweaked, but they're substantially accurate at this point.
At this point, can you give us an estimate of the net effect of House Bill 3?
Based on Omar's sheets, I got
Yes.
some work papers. I think it's about $6 million net. And that would be taking the property values. So there's three pieces. There's gross property, there's local revenue from property taxes. And essentially, they lowered the tax rate by 7 cents. Okay, well, 7 cents on $1.04 is about a 6.5% decrease. However, we're projecting a 15% increase in property wealth. So we do see we see a plus there in terms of additional property taxes. However, that is then translated, as I said, into a loss of state program revenues. The third piece of that is recapture, and that still exists, and so you take away the net of the recapture. So our biggest savings is in the recapture, but by lowering the property rate, tax rate, and the increase in the local fund assignment, those are both bad for us. It pretty much is a wash. So we wash out the bill added about $6 million in net revenue. And by that, I mean local property taxes plus the state funding, less the recapture. And so when you compare column A to column B, there's about a $6 or so million difference.
Okay. I have another question on the revenue side. What is our percent of collections at this point, and did you budget based on that percent?
I budgeted on 98%. Our collections rates are probably closer to 99 or better.
Okay.
And that includes delinquent taxes, of course, and stuff
Right.
like that. But I budgeted on 98.
Okay.
Now, we budget on 100%. Well, on the notice, we budget for 100% on the debt service side for technical reasons, but on the general fund, we use 98.
Use 98. And one other question. I was noticing on under the general fund expenditures heading, down with your support services non-student based, there's like a $4.1 million hit, and I know that can't be all payroll costs. Do you have anything that breaks out our payroll costs? Because I tried to calculate what we're spending fund balance and taking away our compensation plan and our staffing, but I didn't come up with the 21 million. Is there a way to sort of go through what the hits are to fund balance, or is this so it can't be all staffing? So
there were some non-staffing expenditure increases.
And so in that support services, the $4 million, are there some large ticket item or line items there?
One of them probably would have been transportation.
Transportation.
I'm trying to remember how much transportation went up. It was on a, Mark, do you remember the multiplier? It was three something percent? Nope.
Please go.
It was about a little over 3% or maybe 4% increase in transportation costs.
Is that because?
Actually, that's in here now that I think about it, because you can look at function 34.
Okay.
Hold on. Yeah, transportation went from $10.5 million to $11.1 million. Co-curricular went up $700,000. I mean, the details on the attached pages. So if you look at the pages by fund and function, by function and by major object code, that breaks out some of that.
Okay.
Oh, okay. The big ones were, okay, and the non-support was probably, we're looking at plant maintenance and operation, went from $19 million budgeted last year to $23 million budgeted this year. And that would include personnel going from $3.6 million to $4.2 million. But the big hit is in contracted services, where it went from $14 to $16 million. So it was about a $2 million increase in contracted services. And as I recall from our discussions, that was custodial and other things.
Okay.
I just have a question about the recapture, and you probably don't have an answer, but if it's part of HB3, why does it keep changing what they're telling us? There's not anything in HB3?
It's all based on the assumption of the growth in property value.
Okay.
The state models done by TASBO and the Legislative Budget Board, the LBB, use the statewide average, which I've been told is anticipated to be 6%. The district is currently using 15%. Of course, when we adopt the tax rate in August, it will be something different, no doubt, and that will affect that number, either potentially up or potentially down, depending upon if it comes in at 15%. And that's where budgeting on current year values becomes much more difficult than budgeting on prior year values, especially if you are a school district that starts its fiscal year in July, when you have to work on estimates, as opposed to some districts now starting in September, and so they would actually have the July certification in hand.
So by September, we should know what our growth and our property.
We should have a much better idea. Then in the fall, you get supplementals, and this is why it's a bit of a beating, to be honest, using current values, because you get an estimate at the end of May, technically the end of April, but we drag it out to May to get a little better number. Then you get a certified roll in July, and then you maybe get another 100 million plus probably in September, when they start working through the final. They certify at 95%, so they still got to work through about 5% of the tax roll going into the fall after July 25th. And so by the end of September, then you've got your real number finally. But it's substantially correct at the end of July, because you're at a 95% level of certification, and they're only going to add a little bit more.
Mr. Craswich, remind me what our estimated percent of student growth is.
I think it's a little under 5%.
5%?
Yeah, I want to say 4.8 or something like that.
Okay. And so if we were comparing this budget to last year's budget, what is the percent increase of this budget over last year's budget?
Well, not having my calculator in front of me, whatever 242 divided by 215 is.
So roughly 12%, something like that?
Well, 10% would be 20, so it's 20 on, so maybe 10%.
So our budget from one year to the next is doubling, but our student growth isn't. And so some of this just seems like it's not sustainable, that we've got to align the student growth with the budget growth, because we can't continue to use fund balance for just regular budget needs. Those have to be special. So where is the opportunity here to start to work our way so that we can align the budget growth with the student growth?
Well, I think I'd have to defer that to the team of 8, in all honesty. I think, as I have been saying, though, for about 3 years now on the forecast, we are entering an unsustainable situation, and we have talked about the need to do a thorough review of the programmatic expenses on a per-student basis, and as well as the possibility of a tax ratification election. I mean, we've been talking about that now for at least 3 years.
That was really the main question we need answered by HB3. We knew we were a district because of our growth, because most of the increases in our budget are truly just personnel. It's making sure we have enough folks to do to do what we need to do for our kids, and those folks who support the teachers who work with our kids. We knew we were a district because of recapture that could not sustain ourselves without a tax ratification election. Now that we have HB3, that's still the biggest question. Does HB3 now require? There's a lot of districts that have already come out and said they will still need to do a TRE with HB3, and most of them are fast growth districts like we are. So those are the things that we have to work and do that. Now, as I said last board meeting, we have to look within first to make sure that our expenditures are necessary to achieve the vision. And when we know that is happening, then we will go down the road of how do we sustain it, and knowing that every year we're going to be bringing to you a budget that reflects more expenditures every year, because we are, Tim, we're only still 25, 26 built out, and we've got years and years of growth to look forward to. And so that's the reason why I said our budget process is not going to stop this year. We're going to continue to work on this. We have to continue to assimilate HB3. None of us have brought budgets to boards that we really didn't truly know the numbers. This is a time when we just don't know the numbers yet. We'll get those answers for you, and that's the reason why we will ask you to amend this budget several times during the course of this school year. But again, that's the task. And then going out to our community, if a TRE is necessary, if we need those extra pennies, explaining that to our electorate will be, as John said, what we were talking about anyway. We were just really, really hoping that HB3 would be better for us. Right now, HB3 did not do what we needed it to do for us, and there's a lot of districts in our same boat. There's a lot of districts that it did do better for. That's all going to be a lot more clear in the next couple of months.
I think to give a specific concrete example, though, I'll compliment HR, Kim and her staff, and Joel in particular, and our high school principals. About 2 years ago, we had TASB come in and do a detailed review of our secondary athletic staffing, and they made some trade-offs between off periods and stipends. I believe they increased the stipends to be more competitive on a salary basis, but they not only covered that cost, but made some money for the district for other purposes by reducing the amount of off periods they had. And so it was done collaboratively between the departments. There wasn't any empire building. And they looked at comparative data provided by TASB. And then, as I recall, we brought it to y'all, brought it to Dr. Warren. It was thoroughly vetted. And so that's the kind of thing you do. And like Dr. Warren says, we're talking about people and staffing levels and programs, to be honest. What programs, and that's when the truly difficult decisions get made.
I would just like to say, I think with the unknown, it's made it very uncomfortable to adopt a budget with this large of a deficit. but I do understand with what you're saying. But I do believe that we need to seriously consider our plans for the future to sustain in whatever we need to do, as you've mentioned, to not dip into our fund balance this deep on a year after year. So.
And let me say this, Dan, you understand, we haven't dipped into fund balance yet. We haven't. We haven't taken one penny out of fund balance yet, and our expectation is that we don't do that. So it's just going to be interesting it's going to be interesting to see how it turns out to see completely where we are with HB3. I don't know. I can't give you the answers that you really, really need right now, and I don't want to be in this situation again. We know what the system is going to be now and to move forward. Now, we would have been having the same conversations if the legislature had not passed the bill. We would have been having the conversation about sustainability because our recapture would have continued to gone up and up and up. Now, what we don't know if it's still going to do this. If we get zeroed out for this year, if we have to pay $3, the way we're growing, it could very well be we'll be back in that Robin Hood world. That's just something we have to take into consideration as we make those decisions on, and making ourselves leaner is not. I mean, we can do that. We can always be more efficient, and that's what I don't make a lot of promises, but one of the things I need to promise you is that we can be more efficient as a district. I think we spend money very wisely right now, but looking at our challenges in the future, I think we can always look at doing things better. I think that's always to be determined on being more efficient. What is our next plan to do so? We just have to have a lot more answers in the next couple of months. And the frustration here is because the thing that we like about our budget cycle is most folks wait until August to approve their budgets. We do it in the end of June. Now, most years we don't have to worry about it again. We can go take our time off and we can get prepared for the new year and the budget's done. This year it made it a little harder for us because, as John said, there's a lot of unknowns, from our revenue to our tax, what those final tax rolls are going to be. So just the timing of our decisions that we had to make, we're early. We didn't have a lot of people to follow. We're kind of in the lead on this, and that's just because of what the timing is for our usual budget cycle.
Again, I appreciate the challenges and all the work that's gone into this, but it does look like a huge difference. So I'm wondering, because we did approve staffing, would there be a way to kind of schedule the staffing so that we didn't add all of the positions approved immediately, that we could look at that in an effort to reduce the overall amount?
And just remember, you're looking at a number and you're taking it to heart. That we don't know what that deficit number is going to be. We have produced a staffing plan that we feel meet the needs. You approved the staffing ratios that you'd like us to follow. We hired in that with that plan. And so we have a very good budget going forward, and we will see where we fall on this. But don't take it to heart that we're going to pull $20 million out of fund balance tomorrow, because we're not. We still don't know if we're going to have a deficit or actually roll money into fund balance from the budget that we're closing down, that we just closed down tonight. Again, the budget is a very living document all year long, and we make adjustments all year long on that. So, my expectation is if we realize a deficit budget, it will be nowhere near what the numbers are tonight. I just can't give you a better number right now.
So the bottom line is we need to approve the budget knowing that we're going to have to amend it.
Please do.
Madam President,
Dr. Roush?
I motion to approve the adoption of the budget for the year ending June 30th, 2020 as recommended by the administration.
Okay, I have a motion by Dr. Roush, a second by Mr. Sluter. All those in favor?
Oh, I'd like to make a statement first.
Go ahead.
I understand this is Mr. Graswich's last meeting with us. I just wanted to publicly thank you for all of your awesome performance over the years. I've been on the board 13 years with you. You always did a fantastic job bringing us in under budget every time, and I know you've worked hard. When Deanne was in there with you, you guys just knocked it out. That's where we are today. That's why we have the facilities, we have the programs, and I just want to say I appreciate you for all of your service with us.
I can't believe it. We've been together for 13 years. Thank you.
I know, right? Two Aggies.
Thank you.
Yeah, best wishes. Anything else? All right, all those in favor? Okay, carries 6-0. All right, our next item is roadway access easement for Haslett Replacement Campus. Dr. Warren?
All right, it is time to get to work on our replacement campus for Hazlet Elementary School in the Hazlet area, Laterra area, and first order of business will be Hazlet Elementary School replacement roadway easement. Mr. McClure.
Yes, good evening, Board. We're bringing this to you tonight. We normally like to bring you easements that are all consolidated and agreed upon and put together. Unfortunately, the timing of this one, with us not having any board meetings in July, is coming to you in an effort to be able to keep that progress moving forward as we finish the negotiations through our council and the Landholders Council, and allowing Dr. Warren, giving him that appointment to be able to execute this and then bring it back to you to ratify in August. Just to kind of give you a quick show of what that is, you kind of see the orange is site, and it's kind of orangish color there, site, and the red road that leads to it. All that right now is currently accessible, but it is not the easiest route to get construction trucks through to that facility. So we're starting the site. I think they brought out the porta potties today, and they're starting to get the site ready. But we're starting to get the big trucks moving in here, hopefully in the next few weeks, to really start get going. So currently, that road, the yellow one that just popped up there, is being developed by the developer. So that's under construction. So once that road gets finished, which they're hoping to start pouring concrete on that road in September, and could be done by the first of the year is what they're telling us. Of course, we got a lot of work to do until the first of the year. So that's currently under development, so we're trying to stay away from interfering with them. We had in the construction contract that green line you see coming across to simplify our route. And so in the construction contract, as a part of the GMP that was presented to you and approved, was the funds available to temporarily put a road in so we could come down the red and cut across the yellow and get over to the site in a more direct route. And we can still do that. That's in the funds. It's already there. What we're trying to do is the blue route that you see that I'm bringing in is come down off of Bonds Ranch, and that is actually, we've driven it, we've looked at it with the contractors, much more easier route to access the site. It does one of two things. It also is easier access, but it also keeps us away from the road construction and trying to cross the road construction with our temporary road. So, but it's a land trust, and I know Christy's been working with their legal counsel, and so there's a lot of moving parts to get that in order. So what we're asking you tonight is to delegate that authority to Dr. Warren, that hopefully we can get this worked out between our legal counsel and theirs and execute it so we can begin to start using that blue road. In the lump sum of things, we may think it would cost us about $20,000. You see that in the memo on the front. Ultimately, we had $84,000 attached to building that temporary road, so it's a net save if we can make this work by using that other road, and that's what we're bringing to you tonight to move forward with. I'll take any further questions you have or comments.
Mr. McClure, who is the easement with? Well, obviously the property owner there, but
I can't remember the name. LaPrelle Trust.
are there any requirements by the agreement with them as far as liability of anybody driving on that road?
That's what we're working through right now. And that's where when we talk about upwards of $20,000 that we may absorb, could be in insurances, premiums paid on our side. Again, net value works out in our favor. We're also working with them to because the general contractor was really the person who would bear that burden. So we're still working through, I visited with Kitty earlier today to say, hey, if the general contractor is going to bear that burden, should the district also have to? And so she's following up with our insurance provider to see. So there's still some questions out there. We're just hoping to wrap it up in a timely manner to get moving and bring that back to you.
Thank you.
Board, I'd recommend approval.
Madam President, I move to approve finalizing of the road access easement and designate the authority to negotiate and execute the easement to the superintendent or his designee, and once executed, presented to the board for ratification at the next available board meeting.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Sluter, a second by Mrs. Hatfield. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Carries 6-0.
Thank you, Board.
All right, next item, Northwest ISD Eaton High School Phase 1 Guaranteed Maximum Price GMP. Dr. Warren?
Board, the information starts on page 656. Tim gave you his memo on the work to be started at Eaton. A lot of the same stuff that we're doing at Byron Nelson right now, creating a new academic wing for Eaton High School. Phase 1, as explained in Tim's memo, is a portion of the project that will cover utilities such as GOL, storm water, and grading, and we want to do that while the kids are not in school. And the total GMP price was $1.399999 million. Can't tell you. Tim is very exact. Board, I would recommend approval.
Madam President,
Mr. Sproles?
I move to approve GMP in the amount of $1,399,999 for Eaton High School Phase 1 as recommended by the administration.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Sproles and a second by Dr. Roush. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Carries 6-0.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to move to reports. First is our May financial and investment report. Dr. Warren?
Mr. Carter.
Good evening. Tonight we present the investment report for the period ending May 31st, 2019. Of course, all investments are complying with the Public Funds Investment Act. In May, we did have one investment mature of $7.5 million into the Capital Projects Fund to help pay for the GMP at Eaton, amongst other things. The total investments for the district as of the end of May totaled just over $317 million. The bulk of that, $130 million in the general fund, $53 million in the debt service fund, and then $132 million in the capital projects. Of that 132, 100 of that was the bond sale that we did in May. That's why that balance has jumped dramatically that month. Most of those funds, 91%, are currently invested in Tex Pool, which is one of the investment pools that school districts across the state use. It is returning the highest rate on those funds, so that's why you see a large percentage of those dollars sitting there right now, with less than 10% in our local depository bank. Then the total interest earnings for the month of May was just over $568,000 and just over $5.2 million in interest earnings year to date. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Okay.
Yep, thank you, Brian.
Thank you. Our next report is the 2018-19 School Health Advisory Council Report. Dr. Warren?
Mr. Johnson.
Good evening.
Good to see you.
Good to see you guys. Thank you for having me. Time for our annual, hopefully this one, 2018-2019 SHAC report. There's just our mission of the SHAC. Again, what the state legislature has put forth for our group. These are our members for the 2018-19 school year, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of them specifically here in just a second, but we had a great group of members this year who did a wonderful job for us throughout the year. And starting with that, you know, you got to have great leadership, and I do want to recognize Heather Harrison. She's here. She chairs our SHAC, and you know, Mark, you asked about or made a comment about outside the box thinking, and that's Heather. We had to find a new place to do the reindeer romp because we ran out of room in Trophy Club. So let's move it to the airport, okay? And then I came up with the great idea, let's get live reindeer. She said, let's go get them. And we've had them ever since. I'm trying now to get her to get us some real snow when we have it. But we did. But you can see her resume there. She does a great job for us. She attends all of our meetings. She sets agendas, takes input, and then she is a go-getter. Got 2 boys in the district, so it's important to her that we be successful and that we do things right. And she has done an outstanding job for our committee, and I thank you, Heather, for all your work and everything you've done. Second is Lucky Denanga. She's Director of Therapy at Services at Texas Health Harris. Also does a great job serving as our vice chair. And then another outstanding leader that we have is Heather Johnson. She serves as the Director of Youth Marketing for the American Heart Association. Also has children in our district. She's very involved at several of our campuses, and we are lucky to have all 3 of them. It would be hard to find a district with 3 people in leadership in their SHAC group that has the background and the training that all 3 of those do, and we are, like I said, lucky to have all 3 of them serving as leaders on our group, so appreciate all of them. Some of the accomplishments that we had in 2018-19, obviously our reindeer romp, we'll talk more about that in just a second. Guest speakers for first aid and CPR. Our SHAC group always does a great job supporting our run clubs. Those continue to grow each year. They get bigger and bigger. Every time we open a new building, a new campus, we add run clubs. So we're always looking for people to help us with that. Our Go Red Week is always big. 21-day challenge is important to us. And then our Creating Heart Safe Schools Project Adam is something that we have been doing as well. Future activities, Reindeer Romp is always going to be probably at the top of our list. It will be December the 7th of this year, and it will be back at Alliance Airport. We'll continue to have our interaction and our support of our 6th grade groups. Gwyneth's Law is something that we may be bringing to you. I'm going to talk more about that in just a second, I think, on this next slide. But you can see all of the activities that we are going to continue to pursue in the 2019-2020 school year. One of my biggest, I guess you would say, priorities is that membership goal. I don't think we are at 1 member per campus yet. Heather, are we? We're close, but we're not exactly there. So I want to make sure that's always my goal, is that we have every campus in our district represented with our SHAC. So we'll stay on top of that. Going back to Gwyneth's Law, I don't know if you know a whole lot about Gwyneth Griffin. This started in Virginia. She was a middle school student. She had a heart murmur. It wasn't a secret that she had that. She was born with a heart problem, but her doctors had given her clearance to do everything she wanted to do. She did dance, she did ballet, very active young girl in middle school. And one day she ran 1 lap around the track and then collapsed. And they went to get the AED. The closest one was in the gym, and it wasn't there. So they had to run all the way up to the school, to the front of the school, to get the AED. They got it out there, and they did bring her back. They revived her, but she had been too long without air. And no one there administered CPR. So her parents led there in the state of Virginia and got it put into law that every able teacher in the state of Virginia has to be certified in CPR, even if it's just the hands-only training. So that is something our SHAC group is talking about very seriously, something that we feel like could be done. It would be at no cost. It's just us being organized and finding a way to get it done. And we would possibly be the only district in the state that had every able-bodied teacher certified in at least the basic fundamentals of CPR in case it needed. So nothing but a positive thing there. So you may hear more about that in the future. These are our meetings for next year. We will have our first meeting September the 10th, and then from there we'll set the rest of the meetings throughout the year. Last year we raised $11,115 through a reindeer romp. Had great supporters, like always, great sponsors. They always are involved with us and do an outstanding job. I thought this was the neatest thing, and Heather hasn't even seen this, but my sister-in-law lives in West Texas, and she's a retired teacher, and now she is a personal trainer and very, very active. She runs in a lot of marathons and half marathons, but she was sitting at home, and she gets this women's running, and she called me one night and told me that they had an article in this magazine about our reindeer romp. And I don't know where it came from. I don't know how they got their information, but she sent it to me. That's the actual edition of the magazine in November, and you can see there it highlights 4 or 5 different holiday runs across the nation, and sure enough, there's the reindeer romp there that we host. So I thought that was a pretty neat thing. Last year, our staff raised over $2,500 during Go Red Week. That's the most we've given back through our staff. And then through our Jump Rope for Heart and Hoops for Heart, we were able to raise over $103,000 for American Heart Association. And that completes our report. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Heather, we really do appreciate you. Thank you for your work on this. Much appreciated. Joel, thank you.
Okay, our next report is review summary of the 2018-19 District Improvement Plan.
Board, we bring this to you at the end of every school year. Angela does an outstanding job, of which she gets a really hard time on her by Dr. Thornell, but she does an excellent job tracking our progress through our district improvement plan that you approve every year. In fact, probably we do one of the best jobs that I've seen of any districts that I've been associated with, making sure that our campus improvement plans, our district improvement plans are not paperweights, that we actually use them to track our progress throughout the course of the year. Angela, any comments on the major initiatives that you picked out on the DIP?
Do you want me to go through the presentation? All right. So it's kind of hard to believe that we're already here, that this last school year flew by like it did, but it did. So you might remember back in September, you approved the district improvement plan for this past school year in accordance with the Texas Education Code. It was based on the 2018-2022 strategic framework. You might remember that was approved a little over a year ago following that strategic summit. It also included the superintendent's performance objectives, as well as objectives focused on identified needs and challenges, those things that we really wanted to target this past school year. This flow chart represents kind of a look at what strategic planning looks like in Northwest ISD. Our core beliefs, vision, mission, and goals are housed in our strategic framework. And again, we designed that to be a 4-year plan. That foundation drives our superintendent's performance objective, which is then set annually. Those performance objectives are then included in the district improvement plan. And then from that, we develop our department action plans as well as our campus improvement plans. So this year's 18-19 District Improvement Plan was based on the 3 goals housed in the strategic framework. Students will achieve success through meaningful learning experiences, innovative pathways, and personalized opportunities. Our staff goal, we will recruit, value, and retain an exceptional staff. We will create and foster an environment where all stakeholders are engaged in the transformational work of the NISD family. 9 performance objectives were developed. On the student side, we focused on pre-K through 12th grade literacy, master's grade level performance, college, career, and life readiness, and a PBMAS emphasis. On the operations side, we focused on first-year teacher support, creating a pool of quality guest educators, school safety, looking at that tax certification election, and then exploring district of innovation. 37 strategies were developed in all to try to achieve those 9 performance objectives.
Here's our planning calendar. You can see where you approve the district improvement plan and then the campus improvement plans in October. And then you'll see those 4 formative reviews that we do in cabinet and with our executive leadership team. Those are important because throughout the year it keeps these strategies and objectives at the forefront of our minds as we're going through our daily business, and it also helps us to monitor progress throughout the year. So the summative review is included in your packet. It's divided up based on the goal. Each goal is identified, then each performance objective is broken down, and then since it is the summative review, that summative evaluation will provide you with an indicator of the progress made on that overall performance objective. Keep in mind that some of our performance objectives, we don't intend them to be achievable in 1 year time. They're a multi-year project, so progress made towards achieving that objective is still significant. The strategies are then all follow with all of the detail, and you can see a visual as well as a written description of the progress made throughout the year. For this strategy in particular, the blue arrow will mean that it's a strategy that's continuing to that next year. So as an overview for our district improvement plan summative review, for example, for goal 1, there were 4 performance objectives, and then 20 strategies were developed to support those 4 objectives. Of those 20 strategies, 10 were completed and 10 will be continuing. In goal 2, we had 7 strategies that were developed, and all 7 of those strategies were completed. In goal 3, there were 10 strategies that were developed. 3 were completed and 7 will be continuing. And then for the 18-19 dip, we did not have any strategies that were discontinued this past year. So just for a few highlights, there's lots of information in the district improvement plan, but to highlight just a few. For student success side, at the secondary level in particular, we really tried to embed literacy and writing into our curriculum, the professional development, coaching cycles in all content areas, including CTE. We increased student performance for our STAR and end-of-course assessments. Over 3,000 professional work-ready certifications were earned by our students. And we developed the social-emotional learning framework and finalized implementation for this coming school year as well as the next. On the operations side, we improved support for first-year teachers through the training and structure of our mentor program. We focused on student safety, again through training and the implementation of safety and security upgrades. And when it comes to the District of Innovation, not only did we explore that plan and applied for it, but we also developed it and we've begun implementation of our District Improvement Plan, or District of Innovation Plan. So again, there's a lot of information in the improvement plan, and it represents a lot of work and focus by Dr. Warren and cabinet members and their staff. Do y'all have any questions at this point?
I appreciate the plan. I wondered if we could get a hard copy of it.
Certainly.
Thank you.
We sure can. Any other questions? Thank you.
Great job, Angela. Thank you.
Okay, our next report is Facilities Planning and Construction Monthly Report. Dr. Warren?
And will it be Mr. McClure or?
No, I was just going to introduce.
I believe Mr. Osborne will be his first presentation to the board.
Yes, absolutely. Board, for your first time, I just wanted to make a quick introduction. Mr. Osborne, Tommy Osborne, joined us about 2 months ago as our Executive Director of Construction as Sarah moved over to ED of Planning. Tommy's got a background in educational architecture. He is a licensed architect, so that means we have 2 architects now, Mark, and I think the count is still 1 engineer. So we've got you outnumbered now. But Tommy has also served as owner's rep before, loves construction industry, and so him and Sarah will be bringing you reports as we move through. And Sarah's on vacation, so Tommy gets his first opportunity with y'all. So thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Warren. Good evening, board. It's my pleasure to come before you tonight to give you the update on our construction. And Tim, I promise I'll keep it under that 30 minutes you said I could have. So moving forward, currently in planning, we have the addition, 3-story addition at Eaton, it was spoke about earlier this evening, as well as additions and renovations at Tidwell and Wilson Middle School, adding on to their fine arts areas. Chisholm Trail, Medlin, and Pike middle schools are also having fine arts and additions and renovations. We're about in the DD phases of both of those, and also looking at where we are budget-wise in all of those projects. Currently under construction, you can see the list there. We've got a little bit going on this summer, so I'm not too worried about staying busy, thankfully. But on to the pretty pictures, which I think most of us like to see. So this is the field house at Byron Nelson. I'd say it's currently about 75% under construction, still on schedule to meet its end of September, early October completion date. It's going to be a very, very unique building, and I think with the graphics package that Joel and his staff have looked at, this is going to be a really, really special building and a great addition to the campus at Byron Nelson. So this is an interior shot looking at one of the team meeting rooms. You can see along the ceiling a partition that's able to split this room into two, so the defense can be on one side, offense can be on the other side, or two separate sports using this space at the same time. This is a view down the coaches' hallway, so all the coaches' offices are along the left-hand side with really amazing views out to the campus along the right, along all that glass. This is the main stairwell going from the locker rooms up to what will be the coach's office and weight room and meeting rooms up on the second floor. This is the roof area, which is going to be a really unique space. So on the left-hand side is the weight room. We'll have some large overhead doors which will open out onto this space. Those what look like concrete benches are actually going to be the finished floor of this area. So the area in the foreground of this picture is all going to be pavers where we can do some outdoor exercises. The area on the left-hand side of that concrete bench will be all turfed, about 50 yards long with yard markings so that the athletes can do some sprints and exterior workout in that area as well. Also going on at Byron Nelson High School is the CTE edition. So you can see here we've got the gray beams poured for the three-story addition, and then on the far left-hand side, you can see one of the additions that's currently underway for the band hall and orchestra. The band hall and orchestra will be completed by the beginning of school, and the rest of the addition will hopefully be completed, will be completed by fall of the following school year. Lance Thompson Elementary, our first prototype new elementary school. This has I'd say about 3 weeks left to complete, so we will be moving in furniture sometime in early July, here in a couple of weeks. Really excited about this. This is going to be an absolutely amazing elementary school, so kudos to Tim and Sarah for the planning aspect of this, and really excited to see this prototype and how we tweak it over the coming years to be a great addition out here at Northwest. So here's a rendering, just for a reminder, a rendering of what the library is going to look like. Here's its current state. So you can see the ceilings are in, the floor finishes are about to go in. Right now, a lot of staging of the final construction equipment. Here's a view looking opposite that direction, back towards what are called the Lion's Den, some neat little reading areas, as well as the clouds that are up on the ceiling. You can see all that is finally starting to take shape, so this is going to be a really, really dynamic space. The cafeteria area in the rendering and its current state right now, so you can see that's starting to take shape as well. The outdoor learning area and its rendering and its current state. The fence is starting to go up. Landscape is scheduled to go in the coming weeks, and so this area will really start to change dramatically over the next coming weeks. Standard classroom, you can see all the finishes are in, flooring's in, ceilings, so the building's really starting to take shape. The additions at Sendera Ranch and Thompson Elementary Schools. Both of these projects have similar additions and renovations to them. Currently, the exterior are all sheathed. The interiors are coming along nicely. Most of them, all the drywall is hung. The ceiling grids are starting to go in. Obviously, some exterior work to be done, but Adam Smith, our construction manager, and myself had a meeting with the contractors today to ensure us that the veneers are going to start. They're actually bringing in some extra masons to get this work rolling, but they did not have any concerns about being finished by the end of July, beginning of August. This is one of the stage areas, the additions to the cafeteria and gym area, which will become the new stage, as well as one of the kindergarten classroom wing additions. And just a reminder that all this information can be found on our website, and if there are any questions, I'd be happy to entertain.
Very good job, Tommy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ward. Appreciate it.
Just saying.
We just hope that you rub off, Tommy.
Okay, our next item is Board President's Report, and all I have is a reminder that we have the TASA, TASB Convention September 20th through 22nd in Dallas. Registration opened on June 18th, so if you haven't let Jennifer know, let her know if you plan to attend. And now we have Superintendent's Report.
Board, remember this board meeting closes us out for the 18-19 school year. Our next board meeting of the new school year will be on August the 12th. So we will see you then. New teacher breakfast. Make sure you have Thursday, August the 1st on your calendar. 7:30 a.m. will be in Northwest High School cafeteria. And then convocation will be Tuesday, a couple of weeks after that, Tuesday, August 13th, 8:30 a.m. at our stadium. Mrs. Cobb, that's all we have. And happy birthday to Mr. Schluter.
Should we sing happy birthday?
No.